Good evening and welcome to yet another episode of India Africa Today. Uh, Africa Talks is the series which we launched 2 months back during the lockdown period. And this is the 16th episode which we'll be showcasing today. During these last 2 months, we have talked about a range of issues related to Africa and India. And particularly, we have tried to focus on socio-economic aspects of development in India and Africa, specifically in the context of COVID-19. Today, we'll be talking about understanding the gender perspective in the COVID-19 crisis, as well as in the COVID-19 response. What is this gender perspective? Why we need to understand it? Why we need to look at the pandemic and the consequences of the pandemic through a gender frame? And what are the ways in which civil society groups, governments, multilateral bodies, and media can play an important role in ensuring that we have a powerful gender perspective and a voice in the overall COVID-19 response? And to talk about that, I have a group of eminent panelists today with me. I would like to first welcome Ms. Julie Thekudan. She's a gender and development practitioner with over 18 years of experience. And she has worked with several national and international NGOs. She's a political scientist by training and has a doctorate degree from JNU. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Our second panelist today is Ms. Efena Omyokachi. She is an economist and an entrepreneur and has been working in Nigeria on women empowerment and related issues. Efena, welcome to Africa Talks.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Our third panelist today is Ms. Amina Aminu. She's a social activist and working in the development sector in Nigeria. And she's also the COVID-19 ambassador for Nasarawa State in Nigeria. Ms. Amina, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Our fourth panelist today is Mr. Foster Addo. Mr. Foster is studying law and is from Ghana. Foster, and he's representing Exilient Africa today in the show. Foster, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rao. It's a pleasure to be here and good evening to everyone.
Good evening. There is some disturbance coming. I would request if you can just make sure that there is no voice in the background. Yeah. Yes. Going ahead in the show, today we got a good news in the morning that as far as COVID-19 is concerned, New Zealand has not seen any new COVID-19 transmission in last 100 days. I think that's a positive beginning, and I'm quite hopeful that in the coming months, more and more countries will be corona-free, and soon India and continents like Africa will also be COVID-19 free. Currently, in the last 4 or 5 months, we have seen that COVID-19 has transformed the way we have been living for several years. The entire system that we had put in place, whether it's education system, the way to earn our livelihoods, the entire social dynamics of our societies, everything has underwent a lot of change due to COVID-19 challenges. And one of the outcomes of this challenge and COVID-19 crisis has been a lot of pressure has come on women in the whole scenario, whether they are working outside the home, whether they're working within the household. A lot of pressure has come on them, and not just pressure, In India, we have seen several media reports that have come in the last few months. Several instances of violence against gender, against women, particularly, have come. They have increased in frequency. A lot of women have been sacked from their jobs during this crisis. That has further aggravated the financial problems related to women. So there are several specific issues that are related to women when it comes to COVID-19. Coming to you, Julie, I would request you to give a general perspective to our viewers that what is this gender perspective and why we need to understand it in the context of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. I must admit that this is a great pleasure to be here to talk about such an important issue, because I think we're just beginning in some ways, because there is a sense that there might be a second wave and there might be a third wave. And the more we keep talking about gendered aspects of COVID, I think the push for having more of the analysis and more solutions oriented towards women and girls and gender diverse communities, I think that it will only help in actually bringing that about. I wanted to start the conversation by saying that I think our starting point is that unless we talk about taking care of the impacts of COVID on everybody, we're not going to see the end of COVID. So it's not like as if some people have the vaccine and it's okay, I'm going to be comfortable. It will have an impact till the last person is also protected against COVID. So when you're talking about the gendered impacts, I think we all know that it started off as a health crisis. But the impact of the health crisis has now gone into many other areas, and you have alluded to some of them. So if I start with the health crisis worldwide, and that's the same for India as well, about 70% of the health workers are women. And the same is the case in India. And when we talk about healthcare and people who are involved in healthcare, apart from the doctors and the specialists, the bulk of the health workers are really lowly paid. They're not seen as, most of them are not seen as skilled workers. So in India, we do have the accredited social health activist called the Ashas. What we have about 1 million of them in the country. So they started going around contact tracing of people who've come in from outside and trying to see whether they have any symptoms of COVID. But let's talk about it. They don't have personal protection equipment. They have a lot of number of cases to track. They're paid an honorarium. So in that sense, they are not seen as an integral or the vital part of the health system in India. And they spend their own money to be able to take care of whatever precautions that they need when they're going out. They face violence. They are abused, they are harassed, they're chased out of the villages. It's the same for doctors as well. There have been cases where women doctors who were going to the hospital during the lockdown period in the initial months of COVID, when it was declared a pandemic, they were harassed for actually wanting to go into the hospital. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the unpaid care burden that has come upon women. With your schools being closed, with everything being locked down, anyways, women in India at least would do about 6 times more of unpaid care work as compared to men. And all of a sudden you had everything that was within the house. And so women had to take care of all of their needs. So we have seen that women's unpaid care work, the hours have stretched. Women are sleeping less. They are getting, the mental load that they are taking is much more. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, as you have mentioned, is violence. There was a lockdown. In some ways, it still continues with a restricted movement. So you are in the house with your abuser sometimes, and you face domestic violence. You don't know whom to reach out to, where to go, what kind of services that you would get. I think organizations in India really struggled to ensure that violence services or services that respond to violence against women and girls were declared as essential services, and so therefore they are open and people and women can actually call up. But often you don't have the system of calling up because you don't have access to a mobile. You're in the same house as your perpetrator, so you don't know how to go about actually informing other people that this is what is happening to you. If we look at the work situation, 90% of India's women workers are in the informal sector, and you already had a very low female labor force participation rate in India. So with the lockdown having come in, women are often more in certain sectors, like for instance, retail, in tourism related activities, as domestic workers, as construction workers. All of that came to a standstill. So you haven't been paid for the months or for the days before the lockdown. You don't have jobs during the lockdown, so you don't have money. And you are then responsible for ensuring that there is food security for your family. You're the one who has to ensure that food is on the table, and you don't have access to food. So you then tend to eat less, you tend to eat last. So we are also hearing stories of all of that. So you're also hearing mental health issues. You're hearing about formal workplaces, as you said, retrenching. And it's often seen as women who lose their jobs because you're considered to be a secondary earner because it is the men of your house who are the primary earners. So, and there are situations where single-headed households, which are normally, how do they cope with it? And
Yeah.
even for health workers, how do they cope with managing the requirements of taking care of the house, ensuring that they are not spreading the infection to the rest of the people? And one last point, elderly women. How do you bring into the situation, making sure that elderly women are at less risk, because we know that there is a higher risk of infection for elderly women, but because they are elderly first, women second, social norms actually dictate that they may at times face discrimination with regards to medical care and nutrition and general care in the house. Sometimes if you are in very crowded places like refugee camps, in slums, in prisons, and you happen to be old, you are far more at risk. So I think it's just, there are many dimensions to the gendered impact of COVID. I'll stop there, and maybe we can discuss this later.
Yes. Thank you so much, Julie. As Julie said, there are several dimensions to the gendered impact of COVID-19. Women are not just fighting on the health front. They're fighting on various fronts, whether it's livelihood security, whether it's household security, whether it's their personal security. And then there is social stigma related to the health workers and even doctors who are working in COVID-19 affected areas. Coming to you, Aminu, would you like to share the scenario that is there in Africa in general and in Nigeria particular, in your country, as far as women is concerned? What kind of impact COVID-19 had on women in Nigeria? And do we have the gender perspective to understand that impact and empathize and take action to change the situation there in your country? Amina. Please, yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry, my voice is gone, so it's a bit husky. So you manage.
You're sounding perfect. You're sounding perfect, Amina. We can hear you very
Okay,
clearly.
then thank you very much. So far, I think I would use myself as a first example. The day they locked down, we were hearing about COVID in Nigeria, but everybody was laughing over it. And my job entails me working in the field with children. And I was in one of the northern states. I was asked to just find a way and go back home. Then I knew there was trouble. So on the first day of the lockdown, I just sat down in my sitting room and I was wondering what would I do to entertain myself and entertain people and keep them also aware of what is the danger of what is coming to us, even though as at that time, truthfully, I didn't believe it. I just felt it was a scam. So, and I did a video saying, you know, women with going for ceremonies, entering neighbor's house. We in Nigeria, it's very normal. You knock at your neighbor's door to hear little gossips and all. So I used that in a local dialect that was comic. And I told people to stay at home. All you women who like going to the next house to hear about Koro, who is this Koro? Now you can't go out, you have to stay indoors. And I kept saying, children, tell your mothers, stay at home. So from that first video I did, I just posted it on my page. And it so went viral that people started calling me and telling me that I needed to do more. So I started using that form of awareness to talk to people. And it made more impact on women because I was specifically calling on women. And children started mimicking me. Like on my page now, there are a lot of videos that children will say, Auntie Amina says, stay at home, wash our hands for us. Mommy, don't go out. Corona is out. So I had to even do a challenge for children. And while doing that, I got some giveaways from one of the richest people in Africa, Dangote. He sent me about 100 cartons of multiple foodstuff. They said I should share it with those children that I was doing the awareness with. So I think on the women's part, it actually made a lot of impact because mothers started contacting me to ask me, please, I should explain more about this COVID-19 because they don't understand it. And you know, it's more affected in the North because I wouldn't say it's ignorance, but maybe the society upbringing, the sensitization of everything around in the North in Nigeria, it's actually something else. So you have to put in efforts, a lot of effort to actually convince people that this thing is true. So the easiest way I could do it, like where I come from, Nasarawa State, when we speak our dialect of Hausa, people laugh because it's comic. So instead, I used that dialect. And before you know it, everybody liked it. Like when I do normal Hausa, they say, no, we want you to do the other Hausa. So like now, online, I cannot, I don't have a statistic, but most women are into business because of COVID. I'll tell you that is one impact, a good impact that COVID-19 has done to Northern women. In short, every woman in Nigeria. Every woman wants to sell something online. I would be sitting down, I will get a box of spices just for me. And because I want you to be happy that I received it, I will do a video talking about your spices and I'll post it. Before you know it, people will start following the person and they will start buying because people don't go out. So the online business was actually moving fast. Women that were not into the social media struggle, they had to get people or their kids to actually help them post their items on social media. So you find somebody selling pieces of cinnamon or clove in tiny pieces. Maybe the sale might just be 200 naira, which is like $3 or $4. but it means a lot for her to put her data and sell it online. So like women are so into not going to the market, not going to the groceries. I can sell anything you want for you online.
So that's a positive development that has taken place according to you.
Yes.
But I'm sure it remains confined to urban areas only.
Sorry?
I'm sure it is confined to urban areas only because of internet connectivity and other limitations in rural parts of Africa.
I'm trying to understand what you said.
I'm saying that, more and more women are coming into businesses now, as you said, but I'm sure it is confined to very limited areas only.
In the local settings, they actually get people because Facebook now is the easiest place to get people. I don't know of other countries, but in Nigeria, once you have an Android phone, there are phones that are not really Android now that are produced, but you can go on Facebook free.
Great. I think, Amina, you have given us a very good and positive aspect of changes that have taken place in Northern Africa in last 2-3 months when it comes to women taking up businesses because they remain at home and they want to sell their products on. I think that's a very positive development that has taken place. Coming to you, Ifena, you are a young entrepreneur and an economist and working with women in Nigeria. What has been your experience and how would you like to see the developments that have taken place in last 2-3 months during the lockdown period in terms of the gender perspective?
Yeah. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
I would like to focus on 4 main areas where it's affected individuals in Nigeria negatively. For instance, with the economic stress and education, approximately 18 female learners are affected because of the lockdown, so they are unable to go to school. This poses a risk for gender-based violence or even being, they might not even be able to return back to school after this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Nigeria has one of the highest child brides at 23 million individuals, and 44% of Nigerian girls get married before the age of 18. So it's a bit worrying because this might increase in the next over the next 10 years.
True.
According to the United Nations, they said that due to the COVID-19 lockdown, a lot of, we're expecting over 10 million young brides or young women to get married, and it could have been prevented. So that is very worrisome. The second thing I want to focus on is gender-based violence. Since the lockdown, there has been an increase, a spike in gender-based violence. So approximately in Nigeria at first, we had 3 major cities that were locked down. So we had Abuja, Lagos, and Ogun State. But then from that time, from March to April, we had 238 recorded cases of gender-based violence. And that is like a 297% increase against women.
Yeah.
And due to the lockdown, there was a compromise and inability to access.
Yeah, I think there is some connectivity issue there.
Hello?
Yeah, Ifena, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So due to the lockdown, services that would help individuals that are going through this experience, they were limited. So that was also a negative aspect of it. And there was also a decline in aid, in the aid, financial aid, or even centers for health challenges and education. So things like childbearing, funds were diverted. Issues like sanitary pads, diversion, HIV treatment, diversion, family planning, diversion. So this will impact the country in the next 10 years as well, because it's basically put a stop to a lot of progress that we have been making. So we might have to revert and go back to the beginning. And for women, there were instances that were recorded where women who tested positive for COVID-19 were not were sent back home because they are the primary caregivers. So this posed a risk for their families, for their communities, and so much, and so on. And then the last thing I would like to speak on is economic survival. So a lot of these women will have to go back, will do transactional, go back to transactional sex. And this is because 80% of the women in Nigeria are employed in the informal sector. And as we know, during the lockdown, almost all the services were shut down, from domestic workers to sole traders, they were shut down. So a lot of these people were likely to go back to put themselves in more dangerous situations. And for instance, there's a scenario, it's currently happening now. Because of the crisis in Zimbabwe, women, a lot of women, majority, are trying to cross the border to go to South Africa just so that they can receive medical care, and they're being turned back. Yeah. And it's women that are taking this risk. So I just feel like, even though there's a tiny bit of positivity, it affects the urban area, but in the rural areas, people are struggling. Even women were unable to breastfeed their children at first until the WHO gave the ahead. So that means a lot of women weren't able to bond with their children at first. And even now, like if you test positive, you have to be separated from your child. Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure on women, a lot of gender violence, a lot of rape cases. I was shook at the amount of rape cases during the lockdown. Yeah. A lot of physical abuse, a lot of domestic violence, and so on.
True. I completely agree with you, Ifena. And in India also, we have seen these kind of incidents happening during the last 3-4 months when the lockdown was imposed. And in a way, we can say that the impact of COVID-19 on women and children is going to be long-lasting. As you said, yes. Especially when it comes to Nigeria, in the next 10 years, the situation is going to further aggravate when it comes to women issues. Amina, you had raised your hand. You would like to say something? Yeah.
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 Okay,
please.
I just
very briefly. Yeah.
Yeah, briefly. Sometimes when you're talking about the impact, I have an understanding of being neutral before you can hit on any challenges. So I wanted to give like a good part of what I have seen so far due to the COVID-19. But I can tell you that when it comes to those who are affected more during the COVID or the lockdown, it is mostly women. You find out there's high rate of divorces now. There's a high rate of women abuse now. And there's a threat, if you talk, I will kill you. So the women are meant to be in the house and restrain themselves from talking out. So I think one way that I have used my own voice. Sorry. Okay, yes. One way I have used my voice is I do videos every day to tell women that you need to talk. You need to voice out. It's high time. So I was part of a team that went to the National Assembly in Abuja with the Kaduna State Governor's wife. There's a group called MARSV, Movement Against Gender Violence and Rape. And we went to see the speaker on the bill. So there's a push that all states sign the bill against abuse and rape cases in Nigeria. So I think women are actually beginning to talk now, but still there's a lot happening that we're not seeing it outside because they're being threatened. So the first thing that needs to be done is to let women understand that they need to talk out. Even the local women now are talking. There are rape cases that come up. When I follow up, the families will tell me, please, Hajia, the man who raped my daughter is the one feeding us. And I'll tell them, I will feed you. They said no, the community will ban them because he has been giving money to people. So please, they thank you for any what I'm going to make, but if I go further, they will not talk, and which makes my effort being jeopardized.
Yes.
So what I do now every day is to still talk to women. You need to talk out. Even the educated women are being abused and they don't talk. Some of them have lived in bachas, like thatched houses, and they get married to a man who now takes them to a duplex or a bungalow. She's scared of leaving him, so she doesn't go back to that thatched house where he picked her from. So she rather stays in that house and endure all the abuse that comes with
yes.
the, yeah.
Yes, Amina, I think that's a reality in several parts of the world, including India also, in several parts
It's
of
pandemic.
India. Yes.
Yeah.
Coming to you, Foster. Foster, what's your take in this whole issue of talking about the gender perspective in COVID-19? And would you like to share some insights from your own country, Ghana?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Earl, for your question. And I believe my co-panelists, they have said it all, and I'd like to throw more light on what they've said so far. So, gender inequality is something that has existed and it's been there in our culture, in our way of life. It's always been there. And though most of the time we try tirelessly to bridge the gap and everything, you see that I think perhaps the efforts are not enough. And the pandemic has aggravated the issue of gender inequality in our society. When you look at certain aspects of our life now, every aspect of our life has been affected by the pandemic. When we talk about health-wise, when we talk about our education, when we talk about our economic aspect of life, it has been affected. Now, when you compare both genders, that's men and women, you could see that women and girls especially are the most affected in these times, and it's some way not surprising because when you look at every crisis, be it war or any crisis, any disaster, when it happens, women and children and girls especially are the most people who are affected the most. Now, when you look at how the pandemic has affected women or girls in terms of health-wise, when let's say pregnant women, girls who have as in health needs, they are not being able to access healthcare properly because all the attention has been diverted to the pandemic, and we've ignored pregnant women, we've ignored girls who need sanitary pads, like my co-panelist said. We've ignored so many aspects when it comes to women's health, and this has really caused lots of negative effects on the women. And when we look at the statistics now, in most of the developing world, I think there has been high rate of mortality that is caused by pregnant women who are not able to access good health care for them to have good delivery.
Yeah.
So this is something that has really affected women in a negative way. And when we look at the educational aspect, now schools have been closed, like the closure of schools, and we are being told that students should stay in the house and have homeschooling. They should access online education. Now, what happens most is that because we have that perception of women or girls being the caregivers of the house or being the ones to take care of the home, what you see is that boys have access to this online education and girls are being made to do the domestic chores in the house. Like they would be doing this home chores, and by the time they finish doing this domestic work and home chores, probably they are tired to even go back and learn or anything or to join this online classes. So when you look at this aspect too, like that's another area whereby girls are being affected negatively when it comes to the educational aspect. And also when it comes to ICT, because now everything is digitized. We are all having online classes and all, and there's been this perception, and that's the truth. Uh, when you look at the statistics, most of the time it's very likely that the gender ratio, guys use mobile phones even more than the ladies.
Yeah.
So this is another aspect whereby like ladies or women, girls don't get access to uh, ICT when it comes to the modern world, and it's really affecting them in that
True. I
aspect.
think
And
I think you're absolutely right that access, this digital access, is something which is lacking, and and that's one way where women are not able to, especially students, girl students, are not able to access the online classes. That's a wonderful point you have raised about this digital divide based on gender. Coming to the second part of my discussion today, we have talked about a variety of issues related to women, which are gender specific issues in the context of COVID-19. How can we ensure that women in general and gender perspective in particular is part of the COVID-19 response? Can we do it through advocacy, through multilateral organizations, United Nations, civil society groups, governments, students, or is there any way, is there any other way to make sure that, that gender perspective comes out strongly in the narrative around COVID-19? Julie, I would request you to first share your views about it, how to bring out in a very strong way that gender perspective in this whole narrative around COVID-19.
Sure. So I think the first thing that we need is high quality, timely, reliable, and disaggregated data. I think the biggest challenge so far has been that I think the data says that it's only about 28% of countries that are providing disaggregated data. Women as a whole is not a homogeneous community. There are many intersections of marginalization. So it is very important to have that disaggregated data. And I think worldwide, a lot of organizations have made commitments to improving gender data. And I think this is the time to actually invest in it and to make sure that this data is collected fairly quickly. And based on that data and the analysis of that data, we do bring about policies for both the recovery, the response, yes, but also for recovery. Because I don't think the pandemic is over if you just respond to it in the short term. But you also would need to have recovery. And I do want to say here that the conversation is about building back better. But I think feminists world over have been saying that the situation before the COVID pandemic was not so great for women. So it's not build back better, but actually build something new which works for women and girls. And I would like to add one more point here, is that women are often the first responders to any crisis. And you do a lot of organizations, particularly women's rights organizations, community-based organizations, women's collectives, the fact that they are so close to the ground where communities are actually suffering, their knowledge of what is happening on the ground is much, much more. But are they actually part of the planning process, the task forces that lead on dealing with them, the preparedness? So if you look at, I think there has been a lot of guidance that civil society organizations, multilateral organizations have come about, which speaks of this, that, include women, women's rights organizations in your planning, in the response, and even in planning for the recovery period. And I think one of the most tragic parts of it is that the funding to women's rights organizations is very less. So if you look at the global humanitarian response plan, I think the data shows that less than 1% has actually gone to women's rights organizations. And in these days, when everybody's talking about the gendered impact, but who are the people who are responding? It is actually these women's rights organizations and women's collectives. And there are many examples of where they are working towards elevating the problems that women are going through. And it is actually time to bring all these positive stories and see if they can be replicated, they can be scaled up, because everything, replication and scaling up also has its own challenges. But I think the main point is that, are they being heard? Are they being included? And is there knowledge being put to use to actually make that difference on the ground to women?
Absolutely, absolutely. Coming to you, Amina, as Julie has said, there are several organizations, women groups who are working on the ground during this time. In Nigeria, I don't know what is happening on the ground, what kind of situation is there, but do you think, Nigerian government or any other, UN agency or civil society groups or individuals, they are working strongly? Are they working strongly to bring out that gender perspective in the COVID-19 response or not? Amina.
I think it was a bit less before the COVID-19. So during the lockdown and with the rape cases coming up, more women started getting involved. But even before now, there are civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, activists coming up to team up to keep people aware. But most of them, you find out that it's one of the challenges is women are not actually part of the decision making.
True.
So when it comes to women, it's actually, they don't even know what is happening. You find that a women affairs commissioner in a state doesn't know what is happening in communities where they should be actually taking responsibility or checking out on women who need assistance, who need psychological therapy and all that. And there are budgets allocated for all that. So, but now, because they are being questioned, like in my videos, when it gets serious, I point at the person who is in charge. Like I make videos and ask, where are the palliatives? You tell these people stay at home, but you don't give them food. People are hungry. People will go violent. That is the truth. So I question the government and I question the women affairs. You women leaders in the states, what are you doing about this? Women are being abused. So like now you find out there are women that want to contact me and tell me, it's like, you have a big voice. You don't look at people's faces when you want to talk. So please, we have this issue. We need you to talk it. Somebody cannot come like on social media and attack the government on certain things. I do it and I direct it to them. I call on the leaders, northern governors or southern governors, you have a problem. So person, where is the money you were given to give it to Nigerians? So through that, voices actually raise. So women are actually coming out more now, and women officers are actually being recognized more now in Nigeria, but they were not part of decision making.
Yeah.
It's really rare.
Yes. Both you, Amina, and Julie have talked about the absence of women in terms of planning processes, the absence of women in terms of leadership for all these initiatives that are being taken at the ground level. And I think that's a universal phenomena, and that is something which needs to be strongly objected to and condemned. And that is something which a lot of organizations need to come together and put pressure on these decision-making authorities, that there should be assigned positions for women when it comes to this kind of action-oriented committees or groups or agencies where they have to work on the ground. Because as Julie said, women know better than men that what is happening on the ground. They can make
Yes.
better decisions. They are in touch with the
Yes.
communities. In India, we have ASHA workers who are the frontline health workers. They know everyone in the village, what is happening. They are the person who know who need what kind of assistance,
Yeah.
which girl or which women need institutional, support for institutional delivery, or what kind of
But
medicine
they're not
they need.
taken along.
Yeah, but they're not part of the decision-making process or the
Yeah.
planning process, and that is something that needs to be changed. Coming to you, Ifena, your viewpoint in making sure that this gender perspective comes out, the voices of women are heard, and they are part of the process when it comes to planning or implementing COVID-related programs. Yeah, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes. I think that a lot of individuals are unaware about the effect of ignoring the gender, the female perspective, the woman's perspective. A lot of them, they don't know. And when it comes to awareness, we have the high class, we have the middle class, we have the low class, and then we have the individuals who are not illiterate. They don't own TVs, they don't own radios. These individuals are unaware of anything that is happening within the country, within the nation, globally, and stuff. So awareness is the first, and it's easier to reach the middle class and high class because they have some level of education. And if you say A plus B is equals to this, they understand what it means for them, what it means for their economy. And then the individuals who aren't necessarily educated, but they have a sense of understanding. These individuals, they know, okay, this is what coronavirus is about. Wear your mask, protect yourself. They're a little bit better off. But we need to push, what we need to focus on are the individuals that probably don't even speak English. They need to be educated. They need to know that, okay, you know what, this is the effect of, and these individuals, for a while they have been talking about girl-child education, equal rights, girl not bride. And now we are reaping the benefits of the seeds we have sown because we didn't pay too much attention to this. And now after this thing is over and done, we're going to have a lot of problems. If you check countries where they have some sort of gender equality, they are handling this better, and the effect will be less than it is for a developing nation like Nigeria. And what do I say? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So I think I think you talked about a very interesting point that people don't understand, and when I say people, it includes decision makers also, that what they are lacking by not including women and by not including gender perspective in their decision making processes. As you said, where you have more gender equal decision making processes, the response towards COVID-19 is better. Those states or those areas are doing better. So this is something which people need to understand, that why we need to include the gender perspective in the program implementation or fighting with this kind of crisis. And I think
only 9 countries so far in the world have policies that advocate for gender equal pay. Only 9 countries. So by the time we deal with this 9 developed countries, and then we start moving on to undeveloped countries, like we still have a long way to go, a very, very long way to go in terms of gender equality, in terms of work, in terms of opportunities, in terms of schooling. And then before we start talking about even pay, we can't even start talking about pay immediately because we have bigger issues in the community that needs to be tackled. So my first point would be awareness. Awareness is key. Awareness is key. And this isn't just for the individuals whose children don't go to school. It has to be from top to bottom. Everybody needs to understand the importance of, look, we need to include women in our decisions. We need to include women in these choices. They know where it hurts more. They should have a say. They need to participate more. We need power. We need more in various sectors. Funny enough, the tourism and the hospital sector and the health sector are made of more women. Majority, they are women. And these are the sectors that are being hit the most by COVID.
Yes.
These are the sectors that are being hit. So what are we going to do about these individuals that are going to be hit by tourism and the health?
Yeah.
Well, how are we going to do it? So awareness is key.
Yeah. That brings me to the next part of our discussion. We talked about that this gender perspective needs to come out strongly in terms of information, in terms of awareness. And I think media has a very important role there when it comes to bringing those voices out. But do you think the mainstream media, which has huge influence of the way the people think and read, and specifically in the context of COVID-19, that's one of the most important ways to get information that what is happening on the COVID-19 front. Coming to you, Julie, do you think media could have played a better role in highlighting the gender issues related to COVID-19? Number one. And secondly, in the next few months or maybe the next year, the whole process of response and recovery that will follow the current crisis, what kind of role do you envisage for the media when it comes to gender issues?
So let me start off with how media has actually perceived gender issues even pre-COVID. If I just give an example, the typical reader was a male, 35-year-old techie sitting in the city of Bangalore in India. So news was generally catered towards that person. Women's issues were more about beauty and wellness. So it was not considered to be important. And we also know about how newsrooms are also very gendered spaces. You don't have too many women journalists. So when you're looking at media and how media has actually talked about or come up with stories about gender and COVID, it has done its share, but has it actually analyzed what are the root causes behind this gendered impact? So I can tell you that violence is increasing, but why is the violence increasing? Women are losing jobs, but why? So that, I don't think that analysis has happened much. And I think it was really interesting to note that in India, apparently, and I'm saying apparently because it is a survey, which is showing that, out of the 25 journalists who actually covered COVID stories, the most credible of them, 19 of them were women, and they were more credible. So they were also giving in-depth reporting. There was more informative reporting. But we also see on the other side that there has been a recent survey by the International Federation of Journalists, I think, who have spoken about the increased workload on women journalists and how they are facing problems in actually covering stories, how they are facing more online violence, harassment, bullying, and disproportionate hours taking care of unpaid care work at home, and the need to actually look at reportage. So, and if you do the stories, for every, and this is true pre-COVID as well, for every 3 people who are quoted on COVID issues, only 1 is a woman. And so you don't consider women to be experts on issues. And so if you don't have them in the planning process, you don't have them in the decision making, you will also not have them as sources of expertise on various issues. So I think media can play a very important role, but it has to really rethink its primary way of functioning, and also start tackling the issues of gendered inequalities within newsrooms with what is seen as soft beats and hard beats, and who they are calling on as experts, and how many women are included in all of these. What kind of issues are are we covering, and how can I go to the root cause of those issues?
Sure.
I think that is, we are still a very long way off.
Yeah, I think, Julie, it also has to start with the mass communication courses and the curriculum that we have.
Absolutely.
It has to start from there, because the young journalists who enter these big organizations, big media houses, they don't have an idea, that what exactly they have to cover, and they just follow what they have been asked to do, and then they keep on writing on the same lines. So if we need to include some kind of critical thinking in terms of the new issues, the different ways of looking at issues, and especially issues related to women and children, how differently they needs to be reported in media.
But if I could just give one small point, there is a sense of discomfort when you do that, because what you're doing is also shaking the status quo, right? You're actually saying that, look, the privilege that men generally have, you have to give that up. And that's not very comfortable for, be it in the newsrooms or be it outside. So when we approach the mass communication colleges to say that, can we have gender sensitization courses? They're like, are you going to be disrupting how we have been teaching things or how they are going to be reporting things? That level of discomfort, I think it will take a very long time to break.
Yeah, but it's very much required in today's time. We have to be disruptors when it comes to the way we report on these sensitive issues. Coming to you, Foster, very quickly, your point on the way media has been reporting about the gender issues in the COVID-19 context. And if you can share something from Ghana.
Yeah, sure. So I think the media has a very big role to play when it comes to highlighting the issue of gender inequality and everything. So what I want to say is that this highlights how the media has been monetized these days. They fail to report news that are present, like news that are really, really vital and really matters to the society. But however, they follow trends and report stuff that they feel will bring them more viewers and more market. So, but what they should realize is that the media is very, very important. I see the media as the fourth arm of government because they have the voice of the people, or they are the voice of the people. So whatever they report, they can bring a change. When they push issues, when they report issues, it can push the government, it can push the stakeholders for them to bring changes. So if they are not highlighting the negative impact that the pandemic has brought onto women, then it becomes a very, very big issue. It's like no one really cares about it, or the people in the society are not really concerned about it. But these are real issues happening on the ground, and they need to be reported. And like Ms. Julie said, I think there has to be change in their reportage. They really need to up their game. They really need to report present issues and vital issues.
Exactly. Coming to you, Amina, you shared in our show that you have been very powerfully using the social media to reach out to the community, and especially women. But how has been the experience of reaching out to the mainstream media, whether it's print media or electronic media, when it comes to women-specific issues?
The media they are trying, but their trying is not up to standard. Like the media they don't always report it when necessary or at the peak of it. Okay, I can give you an example. I got a 3-month-old baby case that was raped in Nigeria. The moment I received that picture and audio of the mother talking, I just wore a hijab over my head and I did a video. And people, I told you Facebook is like the cheapest social media. People share what I put on my page, and in the next hour, you find out there are like 1 million views. 500,000 shares. They just keep sharing it. But the media, when they talk, you find out people are even denying. I had to question the national media outfit because of the 3-month-old baby case. Everybody knows I took up that case. And I met with the governor's wife. She gave me 2 weeks, the culprit will be caught. Within 8 days, that culprit was arrested. I didn't know anything, and Nigerians have already relied on me for any information. I just saw it up. The culprit has been arrested and he has been taken to court, and he was on social media. I had to call the editor-in-chief of that media. I was in the media, then I opted for development work. I said, you have to drop that news. People have not confirmed it. You know that I was doing this video. If I do a video and counter yours, wallahi, you're going to lose a lot of people because I will tell them you are lying. Whoever gave you that information, I have to confirm it. So it's not true. So you find out it's only when they want to make a name, they are quick to attend to some things. You find out, for example, now a politician rapes a child. They will refuse to put it immediately on social media because they're trying to cover up, or he is a friend to the owner of the station, or, you know, things like that. So at times, it's not even the fault of the media, but the restrictions around them. They say media people disappear. I don't want to disappear, even though I believe in my confidence. But
no, we
people
got your point. Amina, I think you are very rightly said, you know, this corporatization and politicization of media restricts them from reporting on these issues, these important issues on the ground.
Yes.
Coming to you, Ifena, the last word before we end our show today. Yeah.
So the media is very, very powerful, and they can direct emotions or thought process in different ways. And like what Julie was saying, there's something like in economics called cause and effect. They focus too much on the effect and not the cause. They say, okay, this is what is happening, and that is what is happening, but not why this is happening. So that we have a sense of, okay, this is what we need to do so that we can prevent this from continuing to happen, if that makes sense. And they don't go in depth. They just, like Amina said, they just share for the sake of, I want to be the first to report this. I want to be the first. It's our news house that carried this first. They don't go in depth. They don't show us. They don't analyze. They don't teach us. They don't educate us. They don't inform us, which is a big problem. And that's basically my summary. Like, we should focus on the cause and the effect, not just the effect on how it affects us, but what is causing this. Yes.
I hope maybe in the coming years, with efforts from individuals and groups like yours, a day will come when the kind of discussion we are having today online, the newsrooms will have this kind of discussion, you know, that what kind of issues we need to report when it comes to, you know, a situation like COVID-19. I really hope so. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today in the show. Julie, thank you so much for taking out time and becoming a part of this show. Foster, thank you so much for joining us today. Amina, thank you so much for sharing those insights from the field and joining us in this show today. And Ifena Omyokechi, thank you so much. It was a wonderful discussion, and we would love to have you once again in our show in the future editions. Viewers, thank you so much for watching us today in this lively discussion. We'll be back next Sunday at 8 o'clock with another issue related to India and Africa. Good night and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.